The priesthood has been established. Now we come to the Day of Atonement, and we're given more laws. But what is the Day of Atonement, and what are these laws? Let's find out. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Telly Talks Bible. My last video, we talked about some laws and regulations and things like that, and we also talked about the priesthood being established. The priesthood, it was Aaron and his sons, the Levites, are to become the priesthood. That's what Leviticus comes from. We use the word Leviticus from the Greek, which means the law code of the Levite. That's where we get our term from. So now we're going to come to the Day of Atonement, as well as some more laws and regulations. So, the bulk of Leviticus, that's what it's about. It's laying down the law. What we're going to pick up on right now is chapter 16, and it's the Day of Atonement. Now, I've actually made a video kind of talking about this before when referring to the scapegoat. It's a little short form video. It might be about 2 minutes long. I can't remember exactly how long it was. I do recommend going back and checking it out if you haven't. Also, we use the Day of Atonement. In Hebrew, it's called Yom Kippur. And it basically means this is what they're going to use to purify and clean the sanctuary. And this is once a year. It's on the 10th day of the 7th month. And this is the only time of year that the priests are allowed to be before the Ark of the Covenant, in the Holy of Holies. So what they're doing here is they're going to take 2 goats into the Holy of Holies. One is to be sacrificed, while the other, which I've mentioned before in my video, they put their hand on this goat, and all the sins of the entire nation go onto this goat. And once that is done, they send that goat out to the wilderness as a scapegoat. So what happens here is it's separating, releasing the sin from the nation into the wilderness, because the wilderness is death. And we all know the price of sin is death. So it just breaks it down and gives all these details on what must be done, what the priest should do, how it is, the ritual is to be followed in practice. So that's chapter 16. And then we come to chapter 17. And it kind of starts out talking about people that are given, making their own sacrifices and stuff, because now the priesthood is established. So now the priests are the ones that are supposed to be making all of these sacrifices. So it gets in detail saying, hey, anybody doing, making these sacrifices outside the camp or in the wilderness, don't do it there anymore. Bring your sacrifice to the priest and allow the priest to do it for you. That's what chapter 17 starts talking about. It also goes into more detail on, I've made mention before, we're not supposed to consume the blood of the animal. It goes in talking about how you need to drain the blood completely of the animal, and what happens if you do eat it, what should be done. That one's a real short, simple, and like I said, all this stuff is just laid out laws, a lot of stuff we don't have to deal with anymore. But some we still deal with today. And it's just something that we've kind of followed up culturally. Like this next one, chapter 18. Chapter 18 is going to talk about unlawful sexual relations. So we're talking about, immediate family things like brothers and sisters, things like that. That was not okay. That's not how that was supposed to be. Also going in talking about if your brother's wife is there, don't take your brother's wife and have sexual relations with her. The only time it was kind of okay is if your brother died and you took up her, so your brother would have an heir through you and his wife. That's how they saw that to be a fit reason for a brother to marry another brother's wife. But this mainly it was talking about intermediate family. That doesn't go like, they would still marry relatives within like their tribe or clan, things like that, like cousins, second cousins, on down the line. This is just talking about intermediate, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. It was very frowned upon. It also goes into detail about things like homosexuality and bestiality. That's not okay. We don't do that. And this is actually the most detailed laid out sexual related laws in the Torah. And everything it lays out, it's frowned upon even in today's society. So this one does have some things, and it's talking about too, like a lot of people of the land, that because they're in the land of Canaan, they're talking about the Canaanites would practice these things. The Canaanites were sexually immoral. This is laying out morals in a sense. So the Canaanites were out here doing this, doing that. That's what a lot of this stuff is talking about. It's like, you need to be holy like God. Don't be like the people of the land. The land they're in is the land of Canaan. So the Canaanites were doing all these things, and God wants the Israelites to not be like the Canaanites, to be separate from them. So a lot of the stuff that it talks about in these chapters, the Canaanites are doing, and God's like, don't do that. Chapter 19 is going to get into, it's kind of like reiterating some of the 10 Commandments, but in more details. It just lays out more information on things in the 10 Commandments, like, don't lie, don't steal, don't bear false witness. It's just reiterating some of those things, and gives out a little bit like more details on some information that you would need for them. Now, let's see. Chapter 20. Chapter 20 comes in, and it's very similar to chapter 18. Chapter 20 lays out more of the same sexual immoralities and what not to do. But instead of it being more like a set list, chapter 20 kind of goes into more like scenarios. Like, if this was to occur, this should be the outcome. It's a bunch of do's and don'ts and things like that. Yeah, pretty much just what to do in this scenario, what to do in that scenario. It's just a lot of just what ifs in that kind of situation. But, a lot of times when laws are made, it's because something similar or close to has happened. That's how we end up with laws and things like that, because if we have to forbid it from happening, guess what? It means it probably happened at one point, no matter how dumb it is. It's kind of funny if you look at some of the laws that we have here in the States, in certain parts of the country, there's some weird laws out there that only pertain, that only pertain to that state. Some stuff out there is really silly, but like I said, they had to make it a law because somebody did something really stupid at one time. I'm going to close this out. It's going to be a short video. I didn't want to run on too long with it. And then my next video should be closing out Leviticus completely. So what we come now to is chapter 21 and 22. And all these two chapters is going to be talking about is everything previous to this has been talking about the ordinary Israelite. This is how you stay holy. This is how you stay clean. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. If this happens, this should be what you do in case this happens. This is all for the ordinary Israelite. Now we come to chapter 21 and chapter 22, and it's going to be talking about a lot of the same things, but it's going to be talking about the priest. the priests are to be held to a higher standard. And this goes along and talks about what those standards are. Of things what they should do about marriage, or, what they should do if, they touch a dead body. It's a lot more, the standards were a lot higher for them to follow. Talks about things like that are unacceptable as sacrifices. It just lays out a bunch of details on things like that. When I say what's not fit to be sacrificed, it makes mention, hey, anytime it's talking about bring me this, bring me that, it must be without defect. So it just kind of lays out things like what's not to be sacrificed. All right, so that's Leviticus part 3. I don't know why I can't talk. I'm stumbling over my words. Leviticus part 3. I will have a 4th and final part coming later this week, and that will wrap up Leviticus. And then next week we'll get into Numbers. And Numbers is a lot of information as well. A lot of taking census of the people in the area and things like that. I will do a lot of what I've been doing here with Leviticus, just kind of giving like an overview and just breaking down some stuff. But there are some things in Numbers that I will break down and read because I find it highly fascinating and I feel the need to share. But as for now, this is Leviticus part 3. Part 4 will come out later this week. And I hope you've been able to bear with me through this. It's, I've said it time and time again. I've heard it time and time again myself. Leviticus is a part where people get to and they're like, this is boring, and just kind of put the Bible down. So I hope, what I gave you is just kind of a good breakdown and informative. I do highly recommend going and reading it for yourself. I'm just here trying to help you along your journey as I'm going on a journey myself. Anyway, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. And as always, God bless.